by and for white people used conquest to advance an agenda of white supremacy. Their belief and guiding principles were they were ordained by God to control the social affairs of the world. Key phrases when you identify that is manifest destiny and later American exceptionalism. So you got this group of people who said, we know better than any other people in the world, and we should be in charge. God said we should be in charge, whoever their God was. And with that concept and with that ideology, they began the process of conquest. And that conquest continued. And at the end of that, we ended up in the black condition. Number two, their conquest continues. With guns in place, they began a propaganda campaign which would attract other white folks from around the globe to leave the oppressive systems that they were in and come to build inside of this one. Anybody ever see the Statue of Liberty? That was their biggest propaganda campaign. On the Statue of Liberty, there's a what do they call it? A sign? It says, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shores send these. The homeless tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. These people, in the process of conquest, killing and maiming people, decided we're going to start a propaganda campaign. Don't look at all this killing and stuff we did. We got some land over here, and we did some killing, but we couldn't do enough. So all of y'all who losing, wherever you at, come over here, because we got opportunity for you. You kill off some Indians and go on to the new frontier, and we're going to continue, ordained by God, to advance our conquest. I never mentioned one thing about black folk yet, right? I will. All right, in this process of conquest, a most important component would be to continue the oppression of the black slave. For even in his beaten and downtrodden condition, he is still the most qualified to threaten the continued conquest of white supremacy. Every time they take their foot off of the black man creates something. And they realize that we let this black man out the bag, he's going to take this whole thing over. Oppression. We got to keep the oppression. If we don't continue to oppress this black man, he is too great. We got to keep our foot in this path. We got to continue to beat him. Otherwise, this idea that we have will never come into light. It'll never manifest. Number 4, to maintain the oppression, there must be a systematic process. It must slowly integrate the slave. Careful not to allow him to overwhelm the established white supremacy. So what happens? We have to begin to figure out how we're going to position ourselves on the world stage. I'm talking for white people. All right. We have to figure out how we're going to position ourselves on the world stage. When we've done all of this corruption, we still got these slaves that the world is looking at, that we've used to build all of our power. But we can't just let them go and infiltrate our system, because then our system is non-existent. So we have to slowly integrate them. And still in that situation, you find situations like Black Wall Street. You find all of the creativity of black people and the empowerment, their ability to be able to cultivate land and do things that even in the process of being a slave, they were still learning. Black folks was doctors by watching white folks do doctor stuff, right? So I'm saying that this process is still conquest. Because remember, although you're looking at slavery, and there might not be armed forces on the land, you know if you mess up, here come the slave catchers. right? And then so this process of integration allows them to look good on the world stage, right? But still not allow us, black people, to destroy this system of white supremacy. This is general. There's books, there's libraries of information that speaks to these generalizations. But as a liberationist, if you understand this, we can begin to affect some change on our end, right? So here we go. In a most skillful discovery, the oppressor uncovers a way to divide the slaves by using opportunity to control his detractors. All right, let me put that in plain English. Opportunity. We come to the table, we talk about police in the neighborhood. There's only certain things that you understand because you was raised in white supremacy. So to a lot of us, we find problems because we look for opportunity. These words, opportunity and individualism, was introduced to us by this system. Why? Because when you pursue opportunity and individualism, you do what? You leave your brother behind. Opportunity and individualism cause you to look at your brother and sisters the same way white folks look at it, as a problem to this ordained manifestation that you're trying to create. So we've got to start changing our minds, but the oppression continues.
This is not live, so just feel free.
I was thinking about that. I almost had a couple practice with all right. Opportunity. Opportunity at that point further establishes divide and conquer. It presents into the system a concept of individualism. This empowers the conqueror to maintain his position almost effortlessly. All I got to do is in a room full of people who think we about the people, we Africans, we one people, we were slaves, now they're going to let us free. Identify one of you and give you opportunity. The greatest form of divide and conquer. Everybody wants innately to do better and be better. So I give you opportunity. And in that opportunity, you forget about the people. It's designed that way. The system is already in place. Two more. The process arrived at the time to now allow for the full integration of the slave into the system. This act in itself was disastrous for the slave. As Dr. Amos said, Dr. Amos Wilson, he said, this causes the African to lose his identity. Remember, as a slave, you still knew where you came from. But now, as you're allowed to integrate into this system, you lose your identity. You forget where you came from because now opportunity exists in being an African American. This African American concept is an oxymoron. You can't be African in America. The very elevation of African is the very demise of America. They can't coexist. But as long as in your mind you believe they can, you will continue to work for white supremacy. Unknown. Because you believe that there's an opportunity, or there's even a possibility, that white folks will do better for black folks than they can do for themselves. Very general concepts. There's books and libraries that in our development will be able to uncover this information as it's needed for self-development. But we have to be able to accept these general principles. It touches everything in our lives. What is that? What is that thing that we talk about real quick? So let's put this in context real quick. 1776 was, what do they call that? That's when the country was started. What is it?
Declaration of
Yeah,
Independence.
that's when they made the Declaration of Independence. All right. 1964. What happened in 1964? Voting
Civil,
Rights Act,
s-
Brown versus Board of Education, 1964. That's why I got a historian. I can't remember all this stuff. So for about 200 years, right, from 76 to 64, that's an identified time, right, when this system, manifest destiny and conquest, is happening. You're being manipulated all throughout that process. But this system is being built. The financial system, the education system, all of the things that are in place now is building its strength. And then at one point they say, okay, we got enough. Y'all go get some. They integrate you into this system. You're hundreds of years behind. You can't keep up. Now, generationally, you're dealing with what the brother said earlier. A mindset of poverty. You're impoverished in the minds. And opportunity is put into these impoverished areas. And it creates individualism. And we start to say, hey, I got something with name brand on it. I'm just like the white folks, you not. My car nicer than your car. I got a car. Got a job, just got a promotion. I'm smarter than you, I got a degree. And it begins to diminish the very foundation of the African. That's why we become black liberationists, so we can put that back together. That's why we identify with Africa, because it makes us whole again. This is Kushite philosophy. Yes, Queen.
I recently, speaking of what you were saying about us being behind, I actually recently read an article, maybe like a real estate article or something, but it said that it would take the average black person 228 years to catch up with their white counterpart who has had generational wealth from slavery. 228 years for us to catch up with them.
Absolutely. And
Not all of us.
I think that in itself is still only. That's only if you freeze them in time. Because in 228 years, what are they going to be doing? Waiting for you? You know what I'm saying? You can't win in this system.
right, I
It's
agree.
impossible. You already behind. The race started. When you look at it like that, it should change your mindset. What are we talking about, though? We're talking about conquest. Last point. The final steps of conquest. Sell this new Yankee white system to future generations. Keep them separated from their roots, Africa, and establish a new state of oppression that exists in their minds. It does not matter what you do. It doesn't matter how rich you get. Until you address that European living in your mind, that is the last seed of conquest. And it is the first one that you must destroy. That European is put there through conquest. Over years of a systematic oppression. And you think you're free. You may think there's no need for this black liberation that we're talking about. That in itself is the product of conquest. We have to change that. We got to start focusing on nation building. And what Kushite has done is created a concept of nation building that everyone who has that one principle of black liberation instilled in their mind can participate in it. You can get 5%, 10%, 1 hour, 1 week, 1 day. It just takes a little bit. When you look around, this model, as the brother said earlier, results matter. How do you get Christians, Muslims, activists, revolutionaries, white folks, Asians, all contributing to black liberation? Look around. Because all of their existence is in this movement for black liberation. They will never get control. For our people, it always has to be the most important thing that we work towards. Whenever anything is in conflict with black liberation, as an organization, we have to combat it. Black liberation first.
Can you define that again for me, please?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'll go back real quick. Black liberation. Black people. Let me step back. Cushite black liberation. Because also in the philosophy of Kush, you don't even have to have the exact same definition. Kushites need to understand this definition. But you might be building somewhere else and have a definition that's different but does not conflict. We can build on that. We have to find commonality, common ground to move forward. Here we go. Kushite black liberation. Black people in the diaspora coming together to create a nation with the intent of addressing the needs of black people and making white supremacy obsolete. That is it. Now, I wanted to say I closed, but I don't want to say I closed. I see you guys.
No, you dropped the thing in the air.
All right. The philosophy of Kush. I'm stepping back a little bit from black liberation. This space is Kushite culture. We would love to be the biggest proponent of black liberation of any organization ever created. We want to be that. However, we understand in this philosophy that we must be humble. In our humility, we do not place ourselves at the top of any scale. At the top of the scale always has to be black liberation. That organization and that institution has not yet been formed. And it can only be formed when the members of the diaspora, the organizations like this one and many others that exist, come together and create standards and accountability. So, the Kushite philosophy teaches us the process needed to bring our people together with all of their different agendas that are still rooted in oppression to accomplish one objective. That's what our principles are, to bring our people together and accomplish the objective of nation. So, having said that, what's your next move? Your next move is to decide. It's a decision. You can make it now, you can make it tomorrow, but until you decide, you're still going to be operating within the confines of oppression, and you probably will be working to contribute to oppression. Your next move is simple. In your mind, when you look in the mirror and you talk to yourself, look in the mirror and talk to yourself. Don't just sit down in your mind. Look in the mirror. So there's somebody looking back at you. And determine that you want to contribute to black liberation. And become a liberationist. Not everybody's going to want to do it. And that's okay. But at some point, the standards and accountability is going to become more prominent and more defined. And at some point, we all going to have to choose a side. At some point, we got to choose a side. Because, like the brother said, some of us could do more to destroy our advancement than to help. So we have to make sure that we're starting to put together standards and accountabilities and finding where